Hello, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the South to South Dialogue, the closing event to the first stage of the Air Quality Community of Practice. The Air Quality Community of Practice is an initiative of the Ross Center for Sustainable Cities Air Quality Program from World Resource Institute. My name is Daniel Ibanez, Digital Communications and Marketing Specialist for said Air Quality Program. See, we have participants from Canada, the US, Mexico, from Africa, from South America as well. Thank you everyone for joining us. During this webinar, we will explore some of the experiences, needs, and lessons learned from participants from Mexico, Colombia, and Africa, all members of the community of practice, and we will learn the next steps the community will take in its next stages as part of the Canairy Alert project. With all that out of the way, we officially kick off today's South to South Dialogue, lessons learned, shared experiences, and what's ahead for the Air Quality Community of Practice. And I'd like to welcome Carina Arvizu, Director of the Cities Program at WRI Mexico, who will get us started.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you to all the 93 members that actively have participated in this community of practice, strengthening their capacities, but also sharing their experiences and on-the-ground knowledge, which is really important, regarding the use and the implementation of tools that help our cities improve the quality of the air. The atmosphere that we all share and the air that we breathe that can nurture us or can make us sick. And this is very important to share all this knowledge. And we have had so far 7 sessions, 5 of those regarding tools and 2 about the practices. And I want to thank all the members from 7 different subnational governments, especially as Daniel mentioned before, from Latin America and Africa, of 6 different countries, 9 cities, and one of those cities, the authority that participates, it's on the metropolitan area. So this also reveals the importance of governance regarding air quality. I also would like to thank the Minister of Environment from Bogota, a city that we are working a lot with, Carolina Urrutia, as well as Patricia Martinez, who will be leading the next panel and send us a message. Also, I would like to give a special thank to Beatriz Cárdenas, which is the Director of Air Quality, the co-lead at WRI, for strengthening these spaces and making them possible.
Thank you for your speech and welcome. Next, Rebekah Shirley, WRI Africa's Deputy Regional Director, will share a few words.
Thank you so much for that. Well, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Y para nosotros, amigos y colegas que llamando de Sudamérica, muchísimas gracias.
For our colleagues from South America, thank you so much for joining.
The World Resources Institute is part of encouraging South-South learning amongst comrades, because truly we are each other's partners in fighting for cleaner cities for our communities. Our communities, nuestra gente, are inherently tied to each other, so our work must be as well. And today, the session that you all have organized is about our colleagues from Mexico, Colombia, and across Africa, sharing experiences, sharing challenges, sharing lessons learned as the Air Quality Community of Practice. As a bit of background, as part of the Ross Fund for Air Quality for 2022, the WRI Mexico Air Quality team helped birth this community of practice. And then they later joined forces with WRI Africa to integrate cities of Africa into the community through resources made available by the Clean Air Fund and UNEP. And now this community, made up of representatives from cities across Latin America and the African continent, promote knowledge exchange by sharing best practices and successful air quality tools and management cases from cities across their regions. And you see, while the hyperlocality of air quality means that the corresponding legislative frameworks that we're all working on may be specific to our locales, it also means that the solutions that we're developing are sharp and targeted, and we can use each other's experience to pick out similarities and differences in design of policy. So from my point of view, I see Africa as actually standing at a real vantage point here, where it can consider tested methods and innovative air quality management tools that are locally relevant to us because of this community of practice. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for this community and for it even existing. And it's an amazing opportunity for three quick reasons that cross-border Global South cooperation and community create advantage on. One is teaching and implementing air quality management lessons to each other is a bit easier when we're coming from these Global South communities. Two is that communities and countries in the Global South are often facing similar challenges and constraints when it comes to addressing, in particular, air pollution, and we can leverage each other's methods and tools. And three is that we're able in this community to leverage the strengths of different cultures and different nations across the Global South. So I'm really excited to be part of this session today. I don't want to take up any more of your time, Daniel, because I know you have a lot to discuss. But in conclusion, I'm just so thrilled that this cross-border community of practice group exists, and I hope that it continues to grow. Thank you so much to you and to my other WRI colleagues for all of the behind-the-scenes work in helping to make this happen. And of course, bienvenidos a todos. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebekah. Next, I would like to also welcome and share the floor with Desmond Appiah, country lead for Clean Air Fund in Ghana.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and greetings from Accra, Ghana. And we at Clean Air Fund are extremely excited to be associated with this community of practice. Over the period, we have had opportunity to participate and take the learnings that we're hearing from our colleagues from across other countries and across the world, Global South, to influence what we are doing. And we're very excited. I think Shirley, Rebekah had mentioned a few things which I do not want to repeat, but just to re-emphasize that I think a key thing is the learnings of the challenges, the constraints that we share across our countries. And I think that is also part of the strength that this community of practice also brings. And in that, we don't have to be repeating the mistakes. We don't have to be taking the same path if others are facing challenges, but rather it reinforces what we have to be doing, the way we manage, just so we maximize the resources at our disposal and ensure that at the end of the day, we are able to provide clean air for all. I think the equity questions are extremely important. Issues of justice, environmental justice are also extremely important. And as we learn from each other, we pick out those lessons and then it influences what we have to do going forward. So we thank you for having the opportunity to be part of this and to support it and also to learn from our colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Desmond. Next, we will hear from the experts who are involved and share their knowledge during the first session of the Community of Practice.
Recuerden que esta comunidad de práctica la hicimos primero identificando que había una necesidad, primero de compartir experiencias entre quienes están en diferentes ciudades, conocer qué están haciendo otras ciudades, tanto del hemisferio norte como del hemisferio sur, acercarnos a expertos que tienen trabajo y mucho conocimiento en los temas, pero también expertos que han estado trabajando en las ciudades y que también queremos aprender de ellas y de ellos.
So I'm going to give a broader overview of the model that we are developing at NASA to do air quality forecasts.
El objetivo principal de nuestro sistema pues es poder prevenir a la población con un día de anticipación sobre los niveles de contaminación para que ellos tomen medidas de prevención.
Los profesionales que manejan estos modelos, tanto de calidad del aire como meteorológicos, son los que tienen que dar el criterio si efectivamente funciona, cómo se corrige, si se corrige cualitativa o cuantitativamente, para, pues, digamos, tener un mejor pronóstico.
Tenemos que tener la certeza que en el futuro el monitoreo se va a realizar con redes híbridas. Son redes híbridas que van a integrar las mediciones de sensores basados en plataformas satelitales junto con la información derivada de sensores de bajo costo.
ECHO is the research initiative based in Makerere University, Uganda. We believe in building solutions closer to the problem. So we are building focused devices.
Desde el punto de vista del futuro, pues vemos que, por ejemplo, en Madrid las tendencias son positivas, pero estamos en un punto en que tenemos que cambiar drásticamente, tenemos que cambiar una marcha si queremos realmente llegar a los objetivos que nos estamos planteando, ¿no? Y para eso, pues tenemos que repensar no solamente nuestra manera de hacer política, sino nuestra manera de hacer negocios, de vivir, de considerar el planeta, de considerar nuestra ciudad.
All across the globe, there are hidden and underserved communities that just don't get the attention. And especially around air pollution, researchers have really been able to document that in many cases, poor and marginalized communities are the ones that are disproportionately being impacted by air pollution.
Using Resource Watch, you can actually overlay a number of data layers together on the map so you can do some kind of quick investigation. For example, we have population data sets on Resource Watch, as well as power plant data sets and other sources of air pollution.
When we're talking about indicators when it comes to project implementation, people tend to be less clear about what those indicators are. And there's actually 5 different types of indicators that we use to measure project success.
The importance of making things visible. Part of the problem with air quality is we can't see it. If we could see the insides of our lungs, there would be fewer smokers in the world, so that if you could make it visible. And what this does is both the satellites, the low-cost sensor networks, the reference methods, they make the invisible visible. And so I think to start off with, there's quite a few tools to handle the satellite data and make pictures or download pictures to sort of show people, oh, this is how it is.
As you can see, there were some excellent talks and presentations by the experts who joined on the initial session. We thank them all for sharing their expertise and enriching our community. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Beatriz Cardenas, lead of the Air Quality Program and Director of Air Quality at WRI Mexico, so she can tell us more about the lessons learned of this first stage of the community of practice.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And I would like to join my voice to the words of appreciation to everyone who have participated, who have given time and effort in the preparation and the presentations of all of the various sessions we had. This video is an amazing summary, and we will hear in future panels what are some of the lessons and knowledge learned. What I'll do now is perhaps a very short summary of lessons learned in this community of practice. We had many ideas. We designed this with collaboration of many of you. However, the big question is, have we met our objectives? This is the big report we have for today. For those who have heard of this community of practice and those who might be interested in participating in future community of practices. Next slide, please. Well, let's talk about the origins and the objectives. Something that we realize is that in order to achieve clean air in all of our cities, and particularly with the equity lens, we need to get and achieve the tools that are best suited for this purpose. So we are working with people working with cities. We selected certain cities that we have previously worked with, which is what we call the cohort 1 and cohort 2. And it is a great honor to have the participation and support of these various cities. We organized technical sessions to join efforts with those people that are already working in ongoing projects in these various cities, so that we can hear what are the various subjects that we can share across regions. The many different topics that we discussed, and as you can see in that video, which was a very good summary, we had 7 sessions of 90 minutes each. Of course, without taking into consideration all of the pre-work that was behind these presentations, all of the speakers and the people who worked on the presentations. We really appreciate your support. These are the many different subject matters that we discussed in these 7 sessions. We invited experts that would provide an insight on this specific subject matter. And then we would open the floor for those people who were working in the city in question to share their experiences and lessons learned. Okay, we had 93 participants during these sessions, divided here in the various regions and countries. This was a closed community of cohort 1 and cohort 2, of course, but once these sessions took place, we recorded them and uploaded them on the WRI website so that any person interested in this subject matter could listen to them. However, the focus that we had was in these specific cities because of the resources that we had. So this is a relatively small group of cities that we can provide a follow-up, not only taking into account the needs specific to the specific issues they wanted to strengthen, but also learning from the various questions that each city had towards another city. This is a slide showing the results per country. We can see with these indicators how many people attended, what was the distribution between male and female. And in the next slide, we can see, for example, what was the level of participation in each of these sessions. For example, whether this information they received was useful in the workplace, which was, of course, the main objective. As part of the opportunity areas we found, we saw that there is a great need to optimize a form for sending and receiving questions. Also, we realized that it was not only important to have this translated into Spanish and English, but also into French in order to cover countries in various African regions. We also noticed that talking about more practical problems for various attendees was very important. And another challenge has been finding the schedule for a better participation on both sides of the world. Even though, as I said, these sessions were recorded and they could watch them later on, there is definitely a greater participation, and the sessions are richer when we have active participation of members. We also noticed that there was a need to incentivize member participation with in-session activities. We are absolutely clear that times are reduced, that we have very heavy workloads for many of our participants. However, we'd love to find ways to incentivize attendees' participation, of course, taking into account our work activities. And what we also notice is that there are many possibilities to continue learning from south to south and north to south regions in the world. Now, in terms of lessons learned, messages, comments, and remarks that we received from participants, this is a word cloud that emphasizes what were the words that were most mentioned. Most people that participated recognize that this is a great forum for discussion and that allows us to get involved, to increase our capacities in order to understand what are the challenges. Desmond mentioned this before. What are the challenges that we have? What are the lessons learned that other people have that they could share with us? I believe that is it on my side. This was a very quick summary of these 7 sessions. This is as well an open invitation for those who are participating in these sessions to continue sending their comments. Thank you very much for your attention. Daniel?
And thank you in advance for helping us lead the next part of the event. But first, we have a message from Patricia Martinez, General Director from IMEPLAN in Guadalajara.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Martinez. It is an honor to share this space with you. We are extremely pleased to have participated in this community of practice with WRI as part of this air quality community of practice of Latin America and African leaders in 2022. In general, the subject matters that were shared were extremely rich for the metropolitan area, and we participated very closely in the process. This is about participative science. Together with the various institutions that were involved, we were able to carry out a very innovative approach to find very concrete solutions to the air quality problem. Likewise, we were able to provide a presentation in the air quality of our metropolitan area, particularly in the monitoring and report system in the metropolitan area of Guadalajara. We continue working on building our capacities in our office, coordinating with the various government agencies in order to improve air quality and tackle climate change. In 2023, we will continue working in strengthening this information database so that we can quantify the impact of air quality in the metropolitan area. Of course, we have a strong interest in finding partners and update our inventory. Particularly, we have found interesting subject matters so that we can address the needs of the population. For example, a climate action plan, the development of actions around air quality, research around nature, and impact estimation by the implementation of research programs. Finally, based on the results of the metropolitan area, we really congratulate the team of WRI for this initiative. This is also an invitation to continue with this leadership so that we can extend our network of partners. I am sure that this shared information will allow us to design high-impact approaches as we continue working in the short term and in the long term.
Today's first roundtable conversation, representing the actual South-to-South dialogue that has brought us all together, is part of the will take part of the high-level conversation that we will hear from Carolina Urrutia from the Environment Secretariat in Bogotá, and Ibrahim Otieno, Chief Officer Environment and Natural Resources for Nairobi. Beatriz, take it away.
So today in this conversation, together with Carolina and with Ibrahim, what we wanted to do is to ask you a couple of questions so that you help us to identify what are the most relevant aspects from your perspective in the community of practice. Because when we were designing the topics and inviting people, we held a couple of sessions with directors such as Carolina, and we presented the proposals to them, and we asked them to make up the list of topics that we would discuss during the community of practice. But of course, it's important that there is engagement from the teams and also engagement from those who coordinate these groups to foster more participation. So this is a two-way situation. Carolina, that's why I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, what have been the benefits of the members of the Ministry of the Environment in Bogotá being a part of this group, which, by the way, it was a large number of them who joined us. So you shared your experiences in these spaces. We had Edson, we had Eddie, we had, well, many members of the staff that shared what they have been doing. So could you share with us what do you think? Well, Beatriz, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you also to the support of the WRI for the work that we do in terms of equality. Everyone can hear me, right? I'm able to speak in Spanish, and I hope that Ibrahim can hear me. Well, this community of practice has been very helpful for our cities because not only are we able to share our regulations, but we can also share our experience and the challenges that we face, especially when it comes to modeling and monitoring. As Patricia said in her video, citizen science, and in our case, the network of micro sensors was highly boosted after we participated in the community of practice. Sometimes we are hesitant when we have such robust systems to be open to citizen sciences and to be open to any results that might come up. I remember one of the initial conversations we had, which was, what if citizens are starting to monitor the status of air quality, but maybe you are just behind a bus and the air quality would then be terrible? So what we wanted to do first was to make sure that the citizens network are aware of how important it is to be technically robust, so that there are no intentions of making this political or using this information against the government, but rather using the microsensors differently for other purposes. Other citizens had done that because they didn't have such a robust monitoring system as the one that we have in Bogota and surely in many of the cities that you are all representing. So we were wondering if it was possible for the citizen network to work in places where there wasn't such a robust system, to be able to speak about the cities and the conditions. So that was one advantage. Another advantage is how much we have made progress in what we call vital neighborhoods, which is monitoring specific areas of the cities to see the results of interventions, such as tactical urbanisms. In some cities, such as Bogota, with the air quality challenges, it seems that what we're doing is, of course, not enough because it's such a large city, but with the data and by learning from what other cities do, we have been able to make more progress. Those lessons in monitoring and modeling cities in Mexico, for example, that due to their previous crisis, they are, well, very experienced when it comes to modeling and in models that allow us to plan 24 hours ahead, which has been very important. It has also helped us to create impact indicators in large projects such as the green corridors, such as the subway, etc. So we have been able to gain more visibility in technical aspects, but also in management issues when it comes to air quality, and it has been a great experience to exchange between cities. So in a couple of topics such as the low cost and the citizen network have been amazing because it has made us be less fearful, and they have partnered what they're doing with their more robust systems. And this way, we have become more brave and more innovative when it comes to our air public policies. Thank you so much, Carolina. That makes us feel very proud. And you're right, what other cities are doing is very useful because we're not the first ones to do it. Of course, we're definitely not the last ones to do it. So sharing experiences has been very valuable. Your experiences in Bogota have been useful too for other cities so that people, well, are encouraged to innovate. In the question of how can communities of practices help cities? Firstly, to make their staff more professional. But as Carolina said, it's also interesting to hear what other cities are doing, because that encourages even more cities to start implementing some of those actions or maybe using some of the tools. So from the perspective of Nairobi, why do you think it's important to make your staff more professional? And why do you think it's also important to hear from experiences of other cities? This has been a South-South interaction, but we have also been able to share some of our experiences with the Northern Hemisphere. So Ibrahim, what do you think about these two aspects?
Thank you very much for the team of organizers and the participants of this event. One, I would want to say that the importance of making our teams more professional, it's actually very critical when you're dealing with air quality issues. And I think that is why we need a lot of them to deliver on what is expected of them in terms of monitoring of air quality issues within the cities. It's very important to have people that understand air quality challenges and areas of improvement for that particular matter. So therefore, it's important to have professionals in this field, and it's important to continuously capacity build the staff, be able to implement, because air quality issues are also, mitigating in terms of changing depending on the area you're coming from. Today, it could be that you're having problems because of from vehicles, then the next time it's because of something else, because of the changing nature of cities. We need to have people that really understand. Next, us having how the learning of experiences between cities is important to us. It's actually very key, because of peer learning between cities, you're able to see what are the actions probably that these cities that have done it before us, what have they done and where have they failed? What could we then correct, so that when we're implementing our actions, therefore we do not fall into the pitfalls that they could have gone through. So that is a very key aspect of us going through peer learning. So peer-to-peer learning, I think, again, is very important, because we'll be able to also see the challenges and learn from the experiences of peer cities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Well, Patricia has shared with us some ideas on how to continue with our community of practice. We believe that we have reached our goals, but we now want to move on to the next stage of our community of practice. So I'd like to ask both Ibrahim and Patricia, have you thought about what issues you would like to tackle in your own cities in Nairobi and Bogota? From your perspective, as decision makers, what do you think are the issues that we should consider for the next stage of a community of practice? Carolina? Thank you, Beatriz. Well, we have identified 4 issues that we believe would be very useful. Number 1, validating our atmospheric models with cities that have similar conditions. Our team for air quality monitoring considers that we can polish the models even more, just to make sure that they are providing us the quality of service that we need. Sharing more experiences with the use of microsensors, specifically sharing results from different microsensors and the criteria to determine where they are installed and how they are used. As a head of the team, I insist that they need to be mobile, because that makes it more flexible. But well, we are used to gathering data for a long time in the same location. But well, that's what we have been discussing. And that's what I think would be useful for us to make decisions. And of course, we have to consider what the technicians think is most useful for them. It would also be very helpful to develop more solid methodologies and indicators for assessing specific interventions, urbanistically speaking and mobility-wise. So data maybe after installing a bike lane and before installing a bike lane. I think that kind of data would be very useful. Maybe if another city is doing the same, such as Guadalajara or Nairobi, that would help us with credibility, because innovation everyone likes, but we also need the engagement of the community. I mean, it's innovating, but it needs to be based on something, it needs to make sense, and decisions need to be made carefully. And finally, I don't want to screw up with the next name, but this is what my team told me, which is the use of satellites for diagnosing air quality, specifically using the case study that you carried out in the exploration of post-color RBG. So since it's really difficult to tell that story as a communicator, this is a very complex issue in Bogota, and we believe that this data from satellites would be very helpful. And I am saying this on behalf of my technical team, and I've said specifically what they've told me. Thank you, Carolina. And also, we wanted to hear from your perspective. Sometimes there are questions and narratives when it comes to making decisions, and then we have to reach an agreement between the technical areas that have technical capabilities and us, and all of us need to be open and flexible to answer to the questions that sometimes come up. Ibrahim, do you have any ideas of what topics or what issues you would like to take on for Nairobi as a decision maker?
We've had discussions actually. The climate change unit is not so old. It's a new unit that was created, I think, in the beginning of 2019. So we are just coming up, and this peer learning, that's why I said initially that peer learning experiences from other cities will be very key for us to be able to develop our own capacity. And indeed, I believe one of the things that we need to undertake, of course, with urgent need, is the updating of our greenhouse gas inventory. The last one we had was done in 2016. With that, again, when we therefore would want to review our air quality action plan, we have developed one, and then see, therefore, which areas do we need interventions urgently. So those are the key areas that we want to start with as a city. And we are, of course, willing and open to learning from other cities that have already implemented their air quality plans for their cities.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. And finally, I'd like to ask both of you to share a message. If you had to invite other cities or other people who also are decision makers, what would you tell them? What recommendations would you make for them? I'll say a couple of things. First is that we need to accept that there are technical challenges to measure pollutants and also for making forecasts. There are still many challenges in that sense, and that doesn't make us weaker as decision makers. Sometimes that's why some people are afraid of learning from other cities. I laugh because usually we in the global south compare to London, Paris, but I don't think we are as similar as we are to our own cities. So sometimes our standards are so high and their levels of inequality and poverty are completely different. So we have to accept that Nairobi and Bogota need to work together in order to overcome challenges. Doesn't mean that we're making bad decisions when it comes to air quality. And deciding whether we join this type of groups is done by people like me, where we want 100% of certainty, and not necessarily with the technical teams, and also, sorry, with the technical teams that want to learn from other cities. So the first thing that I would like to recommend is speak to your technicians as decision makers, because they need to speak to you. I think that this type of networks are very useful as group therapy in a way, to share our experiences and to hear how other people have solved them. in terms of public policies, group therapy is as important as papers are and as workshops are. To learn to solve problems together as a team is very important. And additionally, I would say that there are never too many advices or tips when it comes to technical data. So use the space for that. I'm sorry, I think that the subtitles are distracting me a little bit. Sorry, I apologize. Well, I was saying that you need to use this as group therapy and that you should allow people to make decisions, especially when it comes to governance, and for the people to feel that they're part of it. I think it's great when we collaborate together with other cities and with other governments so that we can replicate this. It gives us more credibility. There was a workshop with Beatriz over here in Bogota, and I was saying that one of the biggest discoveries when it comes to air quality in Bogota is that the more transparent and open we are, even speaking up when we have questions, is best for us, specifically when it comes to the public opinion in air quality. So participating in these spaces is a great opportunity, and hearing from other cities allow us to have even more credibility, because maybe you cannot spend $50 million in a monitoring system if people won't believe you. So we might publish, make maps, graphs, infographics, satellites, forecasts, but if they don't believe us, if we're not credible, then there's no point in doing none of that. So the fact that other countries have similar issues allow us to have more credibility. And when we tell people do not go out running this morning, they will believe us. And I then won't have to ask police officers to stop people who are running on the streets when there's a bad quality alert. Thank you. Ibrahim, what would be your message?
Thank you very much. My message, I think, will be very brief, and what I just want to say is that as a community of practice, I would, for us to be able to get effective and sustainable solutions, particularly in relation to air quality monitoring, we would then require to have what I would refer to as very elaborate stakeholder involvement in the process. This stems out from our working relationship in our country and the city of Nairobi. We have various arms of government. So we have the executive where we work, but then there is the county assembly members that then forms policies and laws that then we implement. So we have to really work closely with them and members of more of a bottom-up approach in a sense to ensure that we get good representation and good input from members of the assembly and also, of course, members of the public, so that when you take something out as has been mentioned by Madam Carolina, then there is buy-in or immediate buy-in because they might not understand so much on the technicalities, but once you have that continuous and sustainable stakeholder involvement in the processes, you will at the end of the day understand what you're trying to achieve, particularly when it comes to issues of air quality monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolina and Ibrahim. Thank you so much for participating in this panel, and please count on us.
But now on to the next roundtable conversation, where we will hear from Elizabeth Albarrán, Head of Climate Change and Resilience Unit, Zapopan in Jalisco, Jair Carrillo, Air Quality Specialist, Secretary of the Environment of Nuevo León, and Dr. Alex Ndyabakira, epidemiologist at the Kampala Capital City Authority, Maurice Kavai, Deputy Director, Climate Change and Air Quality at Nairobi City County, and Victoria Owusu from the Ghana Meteorological Agency. The second roundtable will also be led by Dr. Cardenas. So once again, Beatriz, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Well, thank you so much to all of our panel members for this second panel. And we also wanted to hear from those who are in charge of decision making in our cities. And we are also interested in listening from those who create that knowledge, create that data, which is used for decision making. So thank you so much for joining us. You have joined us in other sessions, and today, well, we want to make a recap and ask you what you think. I'd like to begin by asking Elizabeth. Elizabeth represents the municipality of Zapopan, one of the 16 municipalities of the metropolitan area of Guadalajara city in Mexico. And since Elizabeth has been in so many sessions and since she's been so active, we'd like to hear, in your opinion, Elizabeth, considering all of the environmental challenges that cities face, and specifically a municipality such as yours, Zapopan, how has the community of practice been helpful for you, or how could a community of practice be of help for someone that does the kind of work that you do? Hello, everyone. Well, the participation from our municipality of Zapopan was very enriching. Throughout the sessions that were held and through the experiences that were shared with us, it is very clear that local governments need to be creating quality and reliable data, because this data is essential for better decision making and for the programs and the initiatives in the municipalities to actually be successful and to meet the needs we have. In our municipality, we are aware of the need of improving our technical skills, specifically on the area of environment. The experiences that were shared during the first phase were very useful to prove that local governments are able to optimize resources that we already have. Because some local governments might have fewer resources, some might have a bit more, but we can leverage whatever resources we have. For instance, low-cost sensors for air quality data can be used, and they have actually been used very successfully by other governments. We also heard about other tools that have been developed by other organizations and that have global data. This data, which has been previously systematized and which is at our reach, can be very useful to anyone who deals with air and weather data. As we heard during the session of citizen science, we also learned that we can leverage citizens to generate reliable data. And at the same time, we're promoting education, awareness of the people, and this also helps to increase our credibility. During the sessions of community practice, we understood that it's very important to have integrated plans for weather action and for equality. In Zapopan, we have a plan, and in order to create this plan or this program, we created an inventory of greenhouse gases. This year, we would like to update that inventory, but now with a new perspective that was shared with us through the community of practice in Madrid and in Mexico City. We now know that we want to change our strategy, and we are interested in creating an integrated inventory where we consider not just greenhouse gases, but also other pollutants. This is going to help us to build joint agendas for both the weather and air. At the moment, we are working on consolidating data that we already have. We have been creating estimates on pollutants emissions. There are two programs for us to gather data for equality. And this emissions are under the purview of our municipality. And we've had this data for a couple of years now, but nothing had been done with that data, which sometimes happens. We have a lot of information, a lot of data, but we don't really know how to use it or how to systematize it. And that's why this community of practice is so useful to learn how to use the data that we have already gathered. I'd like to thank the WRI for providing this space that allows us to share our experiences and also to compare the paths that others have followed when it comes to integrating data, and it helps the governments to reflect what we're doing and what we could be doing with the data and with the capabilities that we have. I would also like to thank the IME plan, because this Metropolitan Institute or IME plan put us in contact with WRI and invited us to be a part of the community of practice. I'd like to invite all of the local governments to be part of the second phase of the community of practice, because these working groups are a great tool. They are very useful for us to be more engaged in air quality issues, to improve our capabilities on data management, to assess better, make more informed decisions. And of course, the result of this would be that public policies implemented in our municipalities will have been designed in a better way.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your participation and for providing these ideas and these experiences. We hope to continue having the participation of Zapopan by means of your efforts and other colleagues as well. Thank you so much. I was asking Alex, I hope I don't mispronounce your last name, Ndyabakira. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He is an epidemiologist from the local authorities in Kampala. So we'd love to hear from you, Alex, from your point of view. What is the impact from your location? What is the impact, do you think, from continuing professionalizing your team based on everything that we have just heard? Not only the experiences of the experts, but also those that are working in the cities. Please, Alex, go ahead.
So I look at the current practice of anything to be guided by evidence. We have a slogan here that science wins. It is that tool that helps you to argue with your senior, someone 5 levels above you, and you can still win because you're quoting science, you're quoting evidence. They're not going to say, I am bigger than you, I supervise you, you have to do it this way. So professionalizing people, especially in a non-academic way, who are in charge of implementation, who are in charge of translating the scientific evidence, the research, the data, and use it to guide, decision, but also to track implementation, progress, and measuring if their decisions were right or good retrospectively is an important aspect if we are to improve lives of people. But also in line of optimizing the expenses. If I spend $1 on an intervention to improve air quality, I need to be professional enough if that dollar is to be optimized. Otherwise, you need to make choices, for instance, between different interventions. You need expert technical abilities to decide, to know that since this project, for instance, has multiple community benefits, it is better than another air quality improvement initiative that simply has one benefit of improving air quality. An example is, for instance, if you signal a junction in a center that is usually affected by jam, on top of streamlining traffic flow, you reduce on expenses on fuel, you make mobility easy, you save people's time, improve efficiency because people are saving time as they reach offices early. You are in addition reducing road traffic accidents, but also improving air quality. So if you're in a setting like mine, where resources are generally very scarce, you would have to choose an intervention that doesn't just address air quality, but also addresses significantly other health problems associated with air quality. The other important aspect is which you get, especially as you listen to what other people are doing. For instance, here in Kampala, we are so much interested in, we have the data, whether it is poor quality or good quality, it is data and it can guide policy. But what have we used for this 5-year-long data to do? So we are looking at interventions, that decisions you can make guided by the data that you have despite the quality to shape the next journey. And this is where we think that we no longer need more data. We need, yes, we need it, of course, but we need more interventions based on the current data that we have. And this is a situation everywhere. Recently, I was in Kigali, I've been in Nairobi. They have quite a number of data, many monitors by many organizations. But to what extent is this data being utilized? So if you professionalize and develop the technical capacities of local authority employees, you bridge the gap between science, between evidence generation, between data that is available and its translation into interventions that benefit the local citizens. One of the biggest problems we have is the academic researcher generated data. But when they want to have a research policy dissemination meeting, they find it very difficult to get these policy makers and implementers in one room to tell them, look here, we have this, and we think it can tackle air quality. So our thinking is that if the policy makers have an idea and are able to understand this evidence without actually having first get a researcher to over-interpret it for them, this duration of translation of information and data into interventions will significantly be reduced. Of course, the other one is that if you move in that direction, then you not always have to have academicians and researchers moving with policymakers. These policymakers also need data to make informed decisions that will move them in a positive direction. So the more you take them in that direction, the more they get interested in actually moving to the researchers. I have found over time that it's easier for a policymaker to move to the researcher to get information. The researcher has studied, it's as simple as asking them, I know you've done a source apportionment study, or you are validating ground, monitors, ground level measurements with satellite measurements. Can you kindly write for me a one-pager of what this means for my practice? How can I use this to improve the lives of the people I'm serving? That makes it very easy. But most times we do not have policymakers moving to researchers. We always have researchers moving to the policymakers, and that bores the researchers. They are very busy people. They can't keep always moving to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. You emphasized a point that we have heard as well from other participants that is very, very crucial. The need of generating data, but if they are not effectively communicated for decision makers, we will not be able to bring our projects forward. Thank you so much, Alex. And also this comment around data analysis, the use of data for the data and the decisions. Let's me to ask Jair Carrillo from Nuevo León. Jair, you also participated in some sessions sharing the experiences of data analysis, actually, that the Nuevo León ministry is doing. So from your point of view, and with the participation that you had in the sessions, what are the subject matters or themes that you believe were most useful to you in this community of practice? And this could perhaps provide a greater idea of what other themes and topics we could consider as well for future communities. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for opening this space and for adding our voice to this community of practice. Now, answering the question, I cannot say that I couldn't really say that all of the sessions that we had and all of the topics that were discussed in these communities of practice contributed to the approach that we are trying to implement here in Monterrey, Nuevo León. But I would like to emphasize perhaps 3 important points. The first one is the forecasts of air quality. And I believe that that is a very important point because, as Carina was saying, it is very important to share experiences across cities. We have and share characteristics that can inform each other. Those who work in the technical side of things, we need better information, more information around the tools that we are generating for our cities. So the forecasts was a very crucial point for us so that we can continue to learn to use new indicators so that we can improve the various conditions that we have to take into consideration to, for example, inform and alert the population around air quality. And this has definitely helped us in how we shape our communication, because this is something that we as technical people, sometimes we don't have that sensibility to inform better the people that will read our information, so that we can also inform people that are on the streets, because normally they don't have that technical level of interpretation of data, but they are also impacted by the problem, right? So it is very important to know how to translate data into more digestible information, into more through a channel that is closer to citizens. I believe that that would be very, very important. So the sessions that we had really helped us around that. The second point was the low-cost sensors that are available. Currently, technology is moving forward extremely fast. The way that we can get new equipment that are low cost and more powerful, we need to beware of just getting the equipment, but not knowing what type of data we can get from them. Therefore, the need to work on data analysis. We know that technical people can have a mine of data, but the important thing here is to exploit that data so that it can be translated into short and medium term benefits. Because of course, this type of data takes its time for its analysis. The third point that I can link to the technical side is the remote sensors and satellite imaging. Technology is currently at a point that allows us to get more information by means of this satellite imaging that informs decisions for those who are in the technical side of things, so that we can provide greater insight on the information that we gather around the regional behavior that we have in our cities. This will definitely allow us to increase the accuracy of forecasts. It will allow us to improve our communications around certain bad or very bad air quality conditions and inform the citizens of our cities to trust in the information that we have, because the evidence is backing all of those decisions up. So this is a type of benefits that we can get from these technologies. Now, we need to also continue educate our technicians in terms of communication. So those would be my three main points that I would like to emphasize. But if you allow me, I would like to add one more, which is the active participation of citizens. It is amazing when we can get feedback from people that are the recipients of our efforts, because decision-making has been made traditionally in silos. People at the top have a perspective of the problem, but people at the city level have a different point of view. So it's important to communicate across these two sections of the population. It is very important to encourage the participation of citizens so that we can work together and we can definitely implement better actions at the short and medium and long term, so that we can see in the future this reduction of pollution. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jair, for these comments. And this is a very, very good summary as well of the many themes and topics that were discussed in those sessions. And this leads me to ask Maurice Kavai, Deputy Director of Air Quality in Nairobi. Maurice, you participated in some of these sessions, and now that we are identifying what other subject matter we can add to future sessions. So what other topics do you consider should be included in future communities of participation?
Thank you very much for inviting us to this conversation. I really want to say that I'm delighted to be part of this team. And as part of the conversation which we have had during the community of practice dialogue, I want to start by saying that improved air quality coming from the climate change space is one of the benefits which we really want to achieve. And when it comes to the issue of data, we want to really enhance data sharing within our communities by really doing a lot of capacity building so that we can enable them to make critical decisions when it comes to issues of air quality reporting in terms of pollution management. And by building their capacity, we'll also empower them to be able to really make decisions. So going forward, what we will be looking forward is to have a conversation with these communities to ensure that they are well versed with the kind of data we might be looking for, the kind of specific pollutants which we can be able to address together, and to enable them to be able to make very critical decisions, and then make them be able to strengthen their capacity to be able to assist even policy makers, policy drivers in enacting laws which really can assist them in reducing the effects of air pollution in these communities. We'll also want to look at a way through which we can start applying the local methodologies which can be used in the local context, so that we can ensure the data which is generated by these communities can be owned. Ensuring that the data is owned by the communities makes, or rather brings the element of responsibility. And the element of responsibility really brings the issue of sustainability, meaning that the kind of data which is protected, or rather which is generated, can be used to further research, and also can be used to further generation of new knowledge, which can be shared across board. So what we are looking forward in this kind of conversation is to see communities engaging each other through what we call cross-learning, so that we can be able to understand the communities in Bogota, the communities in Nairobi, whether they share the same kind of issues with regard to air pollution. Then by doing so, we shall be broadening our collaboration, because this is what we are looking forward to achieve at the end of the day, because understanding the dynamics of air pollution across various cities will enable policymakers to be able to arrive at localized decisions which can really help communities. We also need to see how we can be able to integrate both policy and science and in air quality management. And this one can only be achieved if the data we are getting is actually credible. And this is the data which will be able to really use to be able to make to make the necessary policy changes. In the event the cities or local authorities have policies, then we can be able to amend where it is necessary.
Thank you so much, Maurice. These are really great ideas as well in terms of what we can look forward to continue doing, so that we can bring all of these ideas to the table so that other stakeholders in society are also involved in this decision-making. To wrap up our panel, I will now pass the floor to Victoria. She is expert in meteorology from the Meteorological Agency in Ghana. Victoria also shared her experiences and work in this session. So, Victoria, from your point of view, what are some messages that you would like to share with us all to perhaps make it so that people from other cities and other sectors even could participate in a community of practice? From your point of view, what could be a message based on your experience to invite more people to participate?
So I would like to first of all, thank WRI Africa and then WRI at large for the opportunity given me. I've been participating in the community of practice since the first session till now. I might have missed a few, just about two sessions, but then most of them I was on. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity given me. And then also I would like to emphasize on the point that I worked as a meteorologist with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Until recently, I moved to Clean Air Fund CAF as an analyst. So now I'm working as an analyst with CAF. So and then I'm working as a PhD student. I'm also doing my PhD at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Ghana and University of Science and Technology, Ghana. Yeah. For my PhD studies, that's linked me to WRI. I'm trying to develop a forecasting tool for air quality over Accra. Accra in the sense that that's where we get most of the data from. Before we could forecast into the future, I think we need baseline data. But then for the other regions, we are not getting baseline data for any analysis to be done, to know what's happened previously, to be able to predict into the future. So the concentration is basically in Accra, where I can get data to work with. So I'm employing models, the GeoCF model, and then also some satellite data to come out with this forecasting tool. So my supervisor linked me to WRI based on the Canairy Alert they seek to achieve or they seek to do over Africa, some cities in Africa, which Accra seems to be part. So in order not to conflict, we then decided to work together on this alert. Now, joining the community of practice moving forward, I think has really enhanced my knowledge in most programming tools. On the session where I participated, I think I presented on some challenges I have faced as an African student, visualizing my results, data analysis and all. It came up that most of us students here lack the capacity in programming tools. And then also from EQ, I learned that the data, the sensors they were building were also needed more funds and also needed to get to the other regions, not to the other countries in Africa, not only Uganda. So there's that gap there. Sensors, the air sensors too, as to how low cost they are, whether cheap or not, I think it still could be cheaper or it still could be less expensive or the cost could be reduced so as to employ more over our regions. Now, using air sensors, I employed low-cost sensors for some part of my work, but before using it, I had to, because they've not been calibrated, I had to apply a correction factor to it. Now, if I'm applying the correction factor, it was just developed over Accra. So deploying other sensors to the other regions of Ghana, would that correction factor work well over the other regions, or a new correction factor would have to be developed? And that will be based on employing these federal monitors so as to be able to correct the bias coming from the local sensors. And these federal monitors to cost a lot. So then more funding needs to go there. But then on the whole, I've really learned a lot from the community of practice. It has really enhanced my capabilities. From the challenges I shared or we shared, I think it brought up another session where the map builder tool was taught to help us from the sub-Saharan Africa to be able to visualize our data. That's quite easy, an easier way to visualizing our data sets. Now for data management, I think that there's a lack of data training in data management when it comes to the youth or air quality scientists in Africa. Visualization of data too is a challenge. Where we've gone to conferences or meetings where you see people really lack that capacity. And so going forward from WRI side, I think that building capacity in more of these areas, as in visualization tools, and then also data management tools, which could enhance us, because then at the end of the day, if you have even data from local census, what do you do with the data? How do you process the data to inform decision makers? Also, I was trying to get some decision makers on board on this today's meeting, but then the challenge was that the notice was short, and then also not much is known of WRI for them to accept the invitation. So then I had to explain, and even so, we could not also bring them on board. Now, going forward, I think that we should, WRI could also collaborate with local stakeholders who are working on air quality issues or air pollution issues to be able to get them on board. So I think generally the community of practice has enhanced my capabilities, and also it has given me that platform to also come up with my challenges, the challenges I'm facing, and provided solutions to those challenges for me. So I think it has been very good generally. And then I would encourage the youth scientists in Africa to come on board on this community of practice, so that we could all, like Clean Air Funds goals, making clean air available for all, we could all achieve that goal that we seek to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. These are really great ideas in terms of inviting more people to the discussion so that we can take into account their opinions and also their decisions. Thank you so much to this panel. I will pass the floor back to Daniel, and thank you everyone for joining.
And all the participants of that roundtable for that very interesting exchange. We have already listened to the experts, but now we would love to hear from you, the participants of the dialogue. We're looking for ideas at the local level that can help us understand the areas of opportunity we can work on as a community of practice. So one of the notes says an idea for work would be training on satellite data processing and analysis. We could talk about what are the tools and parameters used to make forecasts. Idea or comment would be capacity building for building high resolution emissions inventory. More education on green economy and blue economy. Meteorology and its relationship with air quality and the tools for the air quality analysis and health. Policy support for air quality management and climate. I see that there are some topics that are in common across the cities and states that where you are all joining us from. Gender integration in air quality solution design. Integration of vulnerable groups in decision making. These are all very great ideas and topics that the community of practice can definitely focus on moving forward. We will listen from participants from the community of practice who led the work at the local level and who will help us take a look at the first 7 talks that were held.
Esta comunidad de práctica trata de traer estos temas, identificar los temas y traer expertos de todos los sectores, y para eso es muy importante saber qué es lo que necesitamos conocer, qué es lo que necesitamos compartir, y sobre todo en dónde están las áreas de oportunidad, pues sobre todo para mejorar nuestro conocimiento, nuestra generación de información, pues para lo que todos y todas estamos tratando de hacer, mejorar el aire que respiramos.
Nosotros presentamos principalmente problemáticas tanto los contaminantes diferentes criterios de PMDs 2.5. Actualmente hemos observado el incremento de las concentraciones de ozono.
Para nosotros lo más importante es que respira la población, y en ese sentido la ubicación de nuestras estaciones está basada precisamente en donde se encuentra la mayor densidad de población. A pesar de que tengamos nosotros los mejores controles de calidad, los mejores controles de aseguramiento, también la percepción ciudadana juega un papel importante en la credibilidad de nuestra red.
Y bueno, ahorita pues es platicarles un poquito sobre las dos colaboraciones con WRI aquí en el municipio de León.
Veíamos en algunas calles, sobre todo donde pasaba constantemente el transporte público, que los índices de concentración de contaminantes eran mucho mayores que en otras avenidas donde si bien también pasaban muchos vehículos, pues eran avenidas más amplias, no se llegaba a concentrar tanto esta contaminación.
Comentar un poco que la Secretaría Distrital de Ambiente, de pronto para las personas que no conocen un poco el caso de Bogotá, estamos implementando una red de microsensores alrededor de unos temas de colaboración, participativos, temas de gobernanza ciudadana.
En términos generales, pues es un plan que tiene la visión de consolidar el área metropolitana como una metrópolis carbono neutral, resiliente e inclusiva al 2050.
Queremos formar un sistema de información satelital que sea operativo para la Secretaría Distrital de Ambiente, y pues en esa medida se inicia con este proyecto con un análisis que está orientado hacia el transporte de contaminantes regionales y globales hacia la ciudad de Bogotá.
Air quality remains a big killer, and it's something we need to work on, but it's also improved a lot for a lot of people. And so I think we need to remind people that the great progress we've made, and the great progress that we need to continue doing, and how a lot of people are living longer, healthier lives thanks to this work, even though it can be pretty invisible. So I know sometimes we feel like, oh, maybe it doesn't matter. It does. It matters a lot.
Now, to end the conversation and close the webinar, let's hear from George Mwaniki, Head of Air Quality at WRI Africa, who will share with us what the next steps are for the project.
Thank you, Daniel, and really thank you to the entire team. We have learned a lot during this process. I can promise you that we have listened and we have heard you, and some of the ideas you have shared in this forum and even the forum before this, we have taken them into considerations, and they are going to inform the second phase of this great initiative. We have picked some of the lessons that you have shared that are really good. So we are going to build up on those strengths and then try to minimize on the weaknesses. Most of you are quite genuine enough to also share the weaknesses, which is a very difficult thing to share weaknesses. So we also appreciate that. There was also a knowledge survey that we did some times back that gave us new insights on some of the topics that you want to consider. And also the need to identify speakers across the globe, just beyond the current community of practice. So we are going to put that into consideration. We have also heard from you that you need to hear more about innovative ways on how cities can share these data with communities, can analyze this data using simple tools. So those are things that we're really going to consider in the next phase of this. We also heard that you wanted to get more involved, to be more engaging this community of practice. So the next phase of these, there will be a lot more interactions. Also the considerations that we need to explore the potential of a face-to-face. I think that is critical, and we have shared with several of our partners, and we'll see how we can facilitate, or we can try and make this happen in the coming second phase. Some also interesting things that came up in this conversation and also in the conversation before is, let's not only share the knowledge and experience, let's share some of the innovative tools that we are implementing or working with the cities. Let's share them across the cities and see how we can build on that. So we are also going to explore those options. And also one issue that is quite critical and important, and it came up several times, is developing local indicators that are relevant to the local cities or the local context. And we will make sure that we organize a forum where we are going to discuss some of these. So this was really, really very exciting, and we want to thank all those who participated. We want to thank Carina and Ibrahim. I know it's from your busy schedule, getting time to participate was really a commitment, and we do really appreciate that commitment. And we hope what we shared here will be useful to your work moving forward. Also, the people who helped plan this, I want to thank you. That's starting with Danielle, Anna, Beatrice, and Christine. We really appreciate your efforts. And also we appreciate the effort of the Clean Air Fund, who financed this particular project, the conference, the community of practice. So we really appreciate that. And let's keep the sharing spirit up, and hopefully we'll continue talking to each other and you'll hear from us. And I would really like to end this with a very interesting quote from one of the greatest African writers, Chinua Achebe. It is drawn from his book called Things Fall Apart. And it says, when a man calls his kinsmen to feast, it does not mean that he needs to be saved from starvation. They all have food from where they come from. And in this case, we all have ideas from our own cities. So when we meet on the ground, it is not because we have come to the ground to watch the moon or to see each other. We have come and met here today because it is important and it is good for Kingsmen to do that. So this was really good for us in the Global South to sit and discuss and share some of our ideas. And for that, we really appreciate it and thank you very much. I can see we have gone over the time a little bit, so we also appreciate your patience. And on behalf of WRI and the entire team that is working to organize this, I thank you all very much, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, George, and thank you for that beautiful quote that's really hard to follow. But thank you, and thank you to all the panelists as well for their time and contributions, and of course, everyone in the audience for your participation. Again, thank you very much for joining us today, and let's continue creating community to improve the quality of the air we breathe. Have a great rest of your day or restful evening. Thank you.